it's about to go down. He's on his way. Patiently they stood. They sang Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf. It's the same old song. When he's gone, they're bulletproof in a house of straw with an old tin roof. And again next week, he gonna blow their house down. Just a merry-go-round on the devil's playground. They'll huff and puff and shoot it up. Never can get quite enough. Hoping every high gonna last a little bit longer.
I'm Johnny Ashley down the hood in the woods, and today we're in the wettest county in the world, Franklin County. And we're at the county line where all the bootleggers used to have to run to get away from the sheriff. We're here to talk about some Appalachian gangsters, and we got a story of getting pushed and pushing back. If you've seen the movie Lawless, you know what I'm talking about, but there's way more characters than just those guys. The earliest settlers in the Appalachians were the Scott Irish, and they brought their distilling technologies with them. In the 1920s, 30 to 40% of all government income came from the taxation of liquor. Then they installed prohibition and lost all that money. The Franklin County Great Moonshine Conspiracy started during the Depression, and it went all the way through Prohibition and ended 2 years after Prohibition ended. Deputy Prohibition Commissioner N.C. Alexander said, of the 30,000 people living in Franklin County, 29,999 of them were involved in the illegal whiskey business. In a 5-year span, Franklin County consumed 34 million pounds of sugar, 13 million pounds of cornmeal, 1 million pounds of malt, 30,300 pounds of hops, and 35 million tons of yeast. And so they went through more sugar pound for pound than New York City did in those 5 years. From 1930 to 1935, the taxes that were not paid on the bootleg liquor equaled $5.5 million. In today's money, that would be $95 million. With that much money missing and that much liquor flowing, you know the government's going to come down and check up on you. Headed by the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, county officials accepted protection money, and the sheriff oversaw a large bribery scheme. He accepted granny fees of $25 to $30 a month for A, him not to come and hassle you, but B, to keep the federal agents like the revenue and the prohibition officers away. The first sheriff to use the granny fee system was J.P. Hodges. His son William Hodges took over for him when he died. Cornelius Jameson was the sheriff of Franklin County from 1932 to 1935. When he was running for election, his supporters would leave cards on stills destroyed by the law. The cards would say, "Still destroyed by William Hodges. Vote for Jameson." He won in a landslide. We're in Boone's Mill, Virginia, which is going to be the most northern town in Franklin County before you hit the big city of Roanoke. So this would have been the choke point for all the moonshine coming out of Franklin County. It would have been consolidated here and then shipped out. While Franklin County is called the wettest county in the world, Boone's Mill is called the moonshine capital of the world. NASCAR began as bootleggers racing each other in their souped-up cars they had to outrun the police. There's a NASCAR track only 37 miles away in Martinsville, Virginia. In the earlier 2000s, a guy was doing research on his family tree, and he unearthed some old newspaper articles talking about his grandfather and his grandfather's brothers. A lot of different stories in there, but ultimately the conclusion was that every one of them boys was 6 foot tall and bulletproof, and also could walk 10 miles after getting their throat cut. Behind me is where the Bondurant Boys fueling station would have been. Now, they weren't the only moonshiners on the block, but they were the biggest moonshiners on the block, and they were the most notorious moonshiners on the block. Unlike in the movie where they refused to pay the taxes, they did pay the taxes in real life. Sometimes you just got to pay tax to grease the wheels, to keep everything running smooth. The Mangohick Creek Massacre happened December 19th, 1930. For any of y'all that have seen the movie Lawless, this is the final scene where they have the big shootout on the bridge and blah blah blah. But that's not anywhere near where it happened, how it happened. It makes for great Hollywood, but it's not actually how it went down. Jack and Forrest Bondurant were both driving cars full of moonshine. They were stopped at this bridge by Sheriff Deputies Abshire and Deputy Rake. The deputies demanded that the Bondurant boys turn over one of the vehicles of moonshine. But Forrest reminded them he'd already paid the protection fees. Jack, in an effort to keep the deputies from getting the vehicle, took the car keys and he threw them into the river. In case anyone was wondering what kind of car it was, they was driving a Ford to outrun the cops, not a Chevy. This enraged Rakes, and he shot Jack in the stomach. When his brother Forrest ran to his aid, Rakes shot him too. The third brother, Howard, the oldest, showed up. Rakes tried to shoot him, but Abshire knocked the gun and the bullet went off target. Howard loaded Jack up into a car and took him to Rocky Mount. Deputy Abshire loaded up Forrest and also took him to a hospital in Rocky Mount. Both the vehicles were impounded. It was said when they left the house they had 120 gallons of liquor with them. When the vehicle reached Rocky Mount, it only had 30 gallons. Another interesting character in this is Miss Willie Sharp. She was the queen of Roanoke bootleggers, and she claimed to have moved 220,000 gallons from 1926 to 1931. 34 Franklin County residents were indicted, and there was 55 unindicted co-conspirators. The 55 unindicted co-conspirators included the guys from Lawless. 19 moonshiners, 1 corporation, and 9 government officials were indicted. With a Commonwealth attorney, 4 sheriff's deputies, 1 former sheriff, a former member of the General Assembly, and a probation officer. 7 of the defendants pled guilty, including Sheriff Hodges. Another 7 pled no contest. The other 20 took it to trial. General Robert E. Lee's great-nephew, Charles Lee, was the Franklin County Commonwealth attorney. He was indicted. Lee had a nephew named William Hopkins, and he's alleged that the then Virginia governor, John Pollard, had ordered Lee to make the collections, and this Franklin County deal was just part of a way bigger scheme that the governor and all the state of people were getting rich on. There was 176 witnesses in the trial. Deputy John Richards was the treasurer for the granny fee bribery system. He turned state evidence, and 1 week before the trial, he was gunned down during a prison transport. He was transporting a prisoner who had just been arrested for stealing from his boss. 2 cars came up behind him on a dark road. The 2 cars passed him, firing at him with the 12-gauge shotgun and a .45. He was hit with the 12-gauge. He stopped his vehicle and exited it in an attempt to return fire. The cars came back and continued shooting at him. He was shot again with the 12-gauge and what appeared to be .45 from a Thompson machine gun. The prisoner escaped from the police car and he began to run away. They shot him too in the back, and they kept shooting. Combined, the bodies had more than 100 rounds fired into them. Paul and Hubbard Dooling from Nicholas County, West Virginia, were arrested for the murder. The first trial was a mistrial, and the second trial was a hung jury. But the third trial got a guilty sentence and 99 years in the Virginia State Penitentiary. This Paul and Hubbard Dooling from West Virginia, they sounded like their county's version of the Bondurant boys. These guys are off the chain. I think I'm going to have to do a whole series, like a whole story on these guys, because they're like running, they're like moving bootleg liquor in biplanes. They not only killed this cop, they assassinated another cop. They had to hurry up and get these guys out of the Beckley jail because a whole mob of this family was coming to free these boys before they could get taken down to Virginia to stand trial. These guys were deep out there, and I think this is something I'm going to have to look up. There's probably going to be a part 2 talking about these guys. Another witness died of pneumonia, which they called that mysterious circumstances. The 10-week-long federal trial happened in Roanoke, and everyone was convicted except the Commonwealth Attorney and 2 sheriff's deputies. 31 out of the 35 people indicted were found guilty, but the stiffest sentence was 2 years in jail, and 13 people just got probation as a punishment. It was later revealed that one of the jurors said that they would not find anyone guilty unless Lee, the Commonwealth Attorney, was acquitted. The trial transcripts disappeared from the courthouse. The last reference to them is in 1945, when they were sent to the federal court in Harrisonburg, Virginia. A Rocky Mount lawyer named T. Keister Gear has been looking for the records. He has written all the family members of the lawyers involved to see if they have any copies or notes. In 1946, the feds indicted 24 more people for jury tampering. 22 were convicted. That case file also disappeared. As we're walking across the bridge from the shootout at the end of Lawless, I want to say thank you for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, hit the like button. If you haven't already hit the subscribe button, you need to hit the subscribe button. You can find me on Facebook as Hood in the Woods. You can find me on Instagram as Abandoned in Appalachia. For more mountain music, you need to check out Clovis Draper's YouTube channel. And before anyone gets too disappointed, while I was standing here filming all this, the people that owned all this came up and asked me what I was doing, and I begged them. I said, "Can I please go inside and check this out?" And they said, "No, we're sorry, it's not safe." And you see that one little yellow sign right there? That's enough to keep me out, because I can't just be breaking the law and putting that on the internet, even though I'd like to sometimes.